Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into my video today on solving quadratics using square roots. Before we get into our square root method, let's try a couple warm-up problems just to get ourselves into the solving mood. So the first problem here says f of x equals x to the fourth minus 20x squared plus 100, and I want to know what x's will make that function 0. At this point, I would encourage you to pause this video and try to factor that to the best of your ability. I will give you a hint that there are 4 correct answers. And then in B, I want you to try to sketch that using your calculator, or not a calculator, if you can do it by hand, that'd be even better. And just think about what connections we see between the graph and the answers we got on A. Pause the video now, try these problems, come back and check when you are ready. And let's take a look at what you hopefully came up with. So for the first one, if you factor that down and solve, you should have got 4 answers, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 5. And in fact, you could have factored both of these down as well if you wanted to. That's another way to do this problem. You could have got x plus 5, x minus 5, x plus 2, x minus 2. Either way, it should net you these answers right here. Okay, and then the graph of this should look very similar to this graph here, kind of like a W looking shape. And you can see where it crosses the x-axis at 4 different points are the 4 x values that make this 0. All right, so what does that mean? That means that when we're solving for a function equal to 0, we are actually seeing where the graph crosses the x-axis. All right, on to today's lesson. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to solve quadratics, not using factoring, but using a different technique called square roots. So if number 1, all right, what we see here is 4x squared equals 12. There's 2 ways to do this, but we want to do this the easiest way possible, and that would be to divide by 4 and get x squared equals 3, and then take the square root of that. And remember, when you take a square root of something, it's always plus or minus root of that number, so plus or minus root 3, which is not a whole number, so we can leave it just like that. Number 2. The squared is already by itself, so we don't need to do any preliminary work here. Unlike in number 1, the squared was not by itself, so we had to divide by 4 first. The squared is by itself here, so we can simply take the square root right away, and we get x minus 3 equals root plus or minus root 7. Sorry, plus or minus root 7. Then the only thing we have to do to get the 3 by itself would be to add 3 over. Now you might think this is your answer, root 7 plus 3, and that's fine. But generally, we like to write the answer with the whole number first and the root last. But either one is acceptable. If you gave me this answer, that is the correct answer as well. Okay, but it's 3 plus or minus root 7. So 3 plus root 7 and 3 minus root 7 are our 2 answers. Number 3, we see the root is not by itself yet because of this 2 here. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. And we get x minus 4 squared equals 18. And now when we take the square root of both sides, we get x minus 4 equals plus or minus root 18. Now root 18 can be simplified, right? We can simplify root 18 off the side over here as root 9 times 2, which is root 9 times root 2, or 3 root 2. So now it's x minus 4 equals plus or minus 3 root 2. Add 4 to the other side, we get 4 plus or minus 3 root 2 as our final answer. And no, you cannot combine 4 and 3 here. So 4 plus 3 root 2 and 4 minus 3 root 2 are our answers. Number 4, a squared is not by itself. We have this 2 and this 14 here, so we're going to subtract 14 and divide by 2. And isn't it nice when we get a nice whole number like this? Square root gives us plus or minus 8. Number 5, the squared is definitely not by itself here, so we're going to start by subtracting 4 from both sides. And then dividing both sides by -3. And again, we get a nice whole number root here. So x plus 5 equals plus or minus 3. By subtracting 5, we get -5 plus or minus 3. Now, I would not want you to leave your answer like that, though. We can do these operations pretty easily. -5 plus 3 and -5 minus 3. And number 6, start by subtracting 9 from both sides and dividing both sides by 4, just to get the square by itself. Now we can take the square root of both sides. Plus or minus 2 equals x minus 2. Add 2 over, so 2 plus or minus 2 is x. So x is 2 plus 2 or 2 minus 2. All right, so that is solving using square roots. We're going to do another example here, kind of brings back yesterday's work of factoring. We're going to do solving by what's called substitution. All right, and then we'll have some practice after that. This is a pretty ugly looking equation here. This is not something we really want to solve the way it's written. So anytime you see something like this, you can use something called substitution, where you substitute a new variable in for the variable that we already see. All right, usually we use the letter U. I don't know why, it's just a letter in math that we use a lot for substitution, but you can use any letter you want. I'm going to use U, and I'm going to let U equal everything that's inside the parentheses there, so s over s plus 1. Now I'm going to rewrite my equation as 6u squared plus 5u minus 6 equals 0. All right, now I'm going to factor this. Okay, you can use any method you would like to do this, so I'm going to employ some guess and check here. So that would give me 9 and 4, which is 5. So we have positive 9 minus 4, which is 5. So that means 3u minus 2 equals 0, or 2u plus 3 equals 0. So u equals 2/3, or u equals -3/2. All right, but the question does not ask us to solve for u. The question asks us to solve for s, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to resubstitute back in this in for u. So it's s over s plus 1 equals 2/3. S over s plus 1 equals -3/2. We can solve both of these by cross multiplication. So the first one is 3s equals 2s plus 2. Subtract 2s, you get s equals 2. The second one is 2s equals -3s minus 3. Add 3s to both sides and divide by 5. S is -3/5. Okay, now this one looks a little different. We're going to do the same thing, though. We're going to say let u equal 1 over x. So now it's going to be u squared plus 8u plus 15 equals 0. Factoring gives us u plus 3, u plus 5 equals 0. So u equals -3, u equals -5. But again, that's not what we're trying to find. We're trying to find x. So resubstitute back in. 1 over x equals -3. 1 over x equals -5. So x equals -1/3. X equals -1/5. All right. At this point, I would encourage you to pause this video, try all the problems on the next slide for practice, and come back when you're ready. Here are the answers you should have got for those 5 problems on the next slide. You can pause this video again to keep this here as long as you need. Otherwise, that's it for today. Thanks as always for checking out my video. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you again soon.